Have you ever woken up in the morning and thought, is this really how I'm supposed to feel at my age? Maybe your body feels stiff before your feet even touch the floor. Maybe your mind takes a little longer to wake up than it used to. Or perhaps you reach for your coffee and quietly wonder where the energy you once had has gone. Well, let me tell you something from the other side of 90. I'm 94 years old. I live here in the United States, and I still enjoy cooking my own meals, tending to my little garden, sweeping my front porch, writing in my journal, and laughing with my family. No, I don't feel 40. I'm not trying to. But I have learned something that I wish someone had told me much earlier in life. Getting older does not mean giving up on yourself. For years, I thought feeling stiff, tired, forgetful, or unsteady was simply the price of getting older. Then I discovered that the way I began my morning could influence how I experienced the rest of my day. And today, I want to share 5 simple morning habits that became part of my life. Nothing fancy, nothing complicated, no expensive equipment, just small things that help me feel more awake, more grounded, and more connected to my own body. Now, before we continue, I want you to think about something. What is the very first thing you do when you wake up? Do you reach for your phone? Turn on the television? Make coffee? Or do you simply lie there for a few moments, wondering whether you have enough energy to get moving? Tell me in the comments. I really want to know what your mornings look like. And if you're over 60 and trying to make this chapter of life healthier, calmer, and more meaningful, consider subscribing to After 60 Life Wisdom. Around here, we believe that growing older isn't the end of the story. In many ways, it's when the most important chapters begin. Now, let me tell you about the first habit. The first thing I learned was incredibly simple. Drink some water before reaching for the coffee. For many years, my morning routine was predictable. I would wake up feeling stiff, walk slowly into the kitchen, make coffee, and hope that somewhere between the first and second cup, my mind would finally catch up with me. But I eventually started paying attention to how I felt when I woke up. My mouth was dry. My head felt heavy. Sometimes I felt sluggish before the day had even begun. So I began keeping a glass of water nearby and making hydration one of the first things I thought about in the morning. And let me be clear about something. I don't believe in miracle drinks, magic ingredients, or secret recipes that supposedly reverse aging. At 94, I've lived long enough to know that if something sounds too good to be true, it usually deserves a second look. For me, plain water became a simple reminder to take care of my body before asking it to take care of everything else. Sometimes I add a little lemon because I enjoy the taste. Other mornings, it's simply water. And here's the question I want you to ask yourself. When was the last time you gave your body something nourishing before giving your attention to everyone and everything else? We spend so much of our lives taking care of other people. Children, spouses, parents, friends, jobs, responsibilities. But who takes care of you? That question stayed with me. So now, when I wake up, I don't immediately rush. I drink some water, sit for a moment, take a breath, and remind myself that I have another day. That alone has become a little act of self-respect. The second habit changed my mornings in an entirely different way. I started letting the morning light in. There was a time when I could spend half the morning indoors without even thinking about it. Curtains closed, television on, coffee in hand. Then one morning, my granddaughter asked me, "Grandma, why don't you sit outside anymore?" I didn't have a good answer. I used to love sitting on my porch. I loved the quiet neighborhood, the birds, the breeze, the changing colors of the sky. Somehow, life had become so busy that I had forgotten how much I enjoyed simply being outside. So I started going onto the porch again in the morning. I don't make it complicated. Sometimes I sit with my coffee. Sometimes I take a few slow breaths. Sometimes I just listen. And there is something about seeing daylight arrive that makes the morning feel like a fresh beginning. Modern research has taught us that exposure to outdoor light plays an important role in our body's internal clock and can support healthy sleep-wake patterns. But honestly, I didn't need a scientific paper to convince me that morning light made me feel more awake. I could feel the difference. Have you ever noticed how different a room feels when you open the curtains and let sunlight pour in? Nothing about the furniture has changed. Nothing has been cleaned. But suddenly, the room feels alive. That's how I began to think about my mornings. Sometimes we don't need to change our entire life. Sometimes we simply need to open the curtains. If you can safely spend a few minutes outside in the morning, perhaps sitting on a porch, standing in the yard, or taking a gentle walk, give it a try. And if sunlight or outdoor conditions aren't appropriate for you, follow the advice that's right for your own health and circumstances. You don't have to turn your morning into a workout. You simply have to reconnect with the world outside your front door. And while you're sitting there, ask yourself this: when was the last time I watched the morning instead of rushing through it? That's a question worth answering. Now, my dear friend, we're about halfway through our conversation, and I want to pause for a moment. If anything I've said so far reminds you of your own life, leave me a comment. Tell me this: what is one morning habit you have kept for years that you believe has helped you? Maybe it's your morning coffee. Maybe it's prayer. Maybe you walk your dog. Maybe you sit quietly by the window. Maybe you call someone you love. Whatever it is, share it below. Because one of the beautiful things about a community like After 60, Life Wisdom, is that we can learn from one another. Someone reading your comment may discover an idea that makes their own morning a little better. Now let's talk about the third habit. This one has nothing to do with cleaning the house or exercising your body. It's about exercising your mind. Have you ever walked into a room and forgotten why you went there? I have. Have you ever searched for someone's name, even though you've known them for years? I've done that too. And I'll admit, when those moments first became more frequent, they frightened me. I wondered whether I was losing something important. But I learned that occasional forgetfulness can happen for many reasons, and our brains continue to benefit from mental stimulation throughout life. So I created a tiny morning ritual. I call it my morning mind garden. Before the news, before social media, before the telephone starts ringing, I give my mind a few quiet minutes. Sometimes I solve a simple math problem. Nothing difficult. Maybe I calculate something in my head while making breakfast. Other mornings, I close my eyes and recall a memory. My mother's kitchen, the smell of bread baking. A Christmas morning when my children were small. The first house my husband and I lived in. A friend I haven't seen in years. I try to remember the details. What did the room look like? What sounds could I hear? What was the weather like? Who was standing beside me? Then sometimes I learn a new word. I'll find one in a book or newspaper, say it out loud, and try to use it in a sentence. It may sound like a very small thing, but that's the point. You don't have to sit down for an hour and complete complicated puzzles. You can simply give your mind something meaningful to do. And here's a little challenge for you. After this video ends, try to remember the happiest morning you can recall from your childhood. Where were you? Who was there? What could you smell? What could you hear? If you can remember it, tell me about it in the comments. I'd love to hear what memories are still living inside the minds of the people listening to me today. Because memories are not just facts, They're pieces of our lives. And at our age, we have a great many pieces. The fourth habit is the one I believe is especially important for maintaining independence, and that is gentle movement. Now, I want you to listen carefully here. I'm not talking about pushing yourself through pain. I'm not talking about doing the exercises you did when you were 30. And I'm certainly not telling you that everyone should follow the same routine. At 94, I have learned to respect my body's limits, but I've also learned to respect its need for movement. There was a time when getting out of a chair felt harder than it should have. I remember thinking, well, I guess this is just what happens now. But then I realized something. If I stopped moving because movement was becoming difficult, I might become even less mobile. So I started moving gently in the morning. Sometimes I sit in a sturdy chair and slowly move my shoulders. Sometimes I march my feet gently while seated. Sometimes I stand near a counter and practice controlled movements. Sometimes I simply walk around my home. The goal isn't to impress anybody. The goal is to remind your body that you're still using it. Think about the things independence allows you to do. Getting up from the dinner table, walking to the mailbox, carrying a small grocery bag, stepping into your garden, climbing a few stairs, getting dressed without assistance. Those ordinary things don't feel ordinary when you begin to lose them. That's why I treasure mobility. Not because I want to look younger, because I want to remain capable. I want to be able to get up and make my own breakfast. I want to walk into my garden. I want to reach for a book on the shelf. I want to hug my great-grandchildren. That is what movement means to me. Freedom, dignity, independence. And if you're trying gentle exercises yourself, please choose movements appropriate for your abilities. And speak with your healthcare professional or physical therapist if you're unsure what is safe for you, especially if you have balance problems, pain, recent surgery, or another medical condition. There's no prize for pushing through pain. There is wisdom in knowing your limits. So tomorrow morning, before you tell yourself, I'm too old for this, ask a different question. What is one gentle movement my body can comfortably do today? Maybe it's a few steps. Maybe it's standing up from a chair with support. Maybe it's moving your ankles while sitting. Maybe it's simply taking a slow walk through the house. Start where you are. That's what I've learned. The fifth habit is one of my favorites because it has everything to do with strength. What are you feeding your body in the morning? For years, I thought breakfast was supposed to be light, a piece of toast, maybe some fruit, coffee. And then I wondered why I felt hungry and tired again so quickly. As we get older, maintaining muscle becomes increasingly important. Strength helps us with everyday activities, balance, mobility, and independence. And protein is an important part of maintaining muscle. So I began paying more attention to getting a good source of protein with breakfast. For me, that might mean eggs and cottage cheese. Other mornings, Greek yogurt with berries and nuts. Sometimes something as simple as a protein-rich breakfast that I actually enjoy. I don't believe in forcing yourself to eat foods you hate. And I don't believe you need an expensive diet. I believe in simple food that gives your body something useful. But there's something even more important here. Don't let breakfast become another rule that makes you miserable. Your nutritional needs are personal. Your medications, medical conditions, appetite, kidney health, and other factors can all matter, especially as we get older. If you're unsure how much protein or what kind of breakfast is appropriate for you, ask your healthcare professional or a registered dietitian. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is nourishment. So tomorrow morning, before you automatically reach for the same breakfast you've eaten for years, ask yourself, am I eating because this is what I've always done? or because this is actually helping me feel strong? That's a powerful question. And sometimes the smallest changes begin with powerful questions. When I look back at my life now, I realize none of these habits is extraordinary. Drinking water isn't extraordinary. Opening the curtains isn't extraordinary. Giving my mind a few quiet minutes isn't extraordinary. Moving gently isn't extraordinary. Eating a nourishing breakfast isn't extraordinary. But doing these little things consistently, that can change the way you experience your mornings. And maybe that's the real secret I've learned at 94. Life doesn't always change because we make one enormous decision. Sometimes life changes because we make one small decision, and then another, and another. We decide to get out of bed instead of staying trapped in yesterday. We decide to open the curtains. We decide to take a few steps. We decide to feed our bodies instead of simply filling our stomachs. We decide to give our minds something beautiful to remember. And perhaps most importantly, we decide that we are still worth caring for. My dear friend, if you're listening to me today and you're struggling with mornings, please don't compare yourself to me. Don't say, she's 94 and she can do all that, so what's wrong with me? Nothing is necessarily wrong with you. Your body is your body. Your story is your story. Your circumstances are your circumstances. Maybe you need more rest. Maybe you need medical advice. Maybe you need a physical therapist. Maybe you simply need someone to remind you that you're allowed to start again. There is no shame in asking for help. In fact, I think asking for help is one of the wisest things we learn as we grow older. But don't give up on the possibility that tomorrow morning can feel a little different from this morning. That's the message I want you to take with you. You don't have to transform your entire life tomorrow. Just begin with one small act. Drink some water. Open the curtains. Step outside if it's safe. Give your mind a few quiet minutes. Move gently. Eat something nourishing. Then see how you feel. And perhaps tomorrow evening, ask yourself one more question. Did I show myself a little kindness today? If the answer is yes, even in the smallest way, then you've already accomplished something important. I'm 94 years old. I still have difficult days. I still forget things. I still wake up with a stiff back sometimes. I still have days when I'd rather stay in bed a little longer. But I also wake up grateful. Grateful that I can still hear birds outside my window. Grateful that I can still write in my journal. Grateful that I can still walk into my kitchen and make something I love. Grateful that I can still sit on my porch and watch the morning arrive. And grateful that I get to have this conversation with you. So now I want you to tell me something. Which of these 5 habits are you going to try first? The water? The morning light? The mind exercise? Gentle movement? Or a more nourishing breakfast? Don't just think about it. Write your answer in the comments. And if you already have a morning habit that makes you feel better, tell us what it is. Your idea might be exactly what another person listening today needs to hear. And if this conversation gave you even one useful idea, please consider subscribing to After 60 Life Wisdom. We're building a place for people who believe that getting older doesn't mean becoming invisible, helpless, or finished. We still have stories to tell, lessons to share, places to go, people to love, and mornings to enjoy. So tomorrow, when you open your eyes, don't immediately ask, what do I have to do today? Try asking, what can I do today that will take care of me? That question may sound simple, but sometimes a simple question can change the direction of an entire day. And perhaps, one morning at a time, it can change the direction of a life. Until we meet again, take care of yourself. Be patient with your body. Be gentle with your mind. And remember this from an old woman who has lived long enough to understand something very clearly. You are not too old to begin again. You are not too old to learn something new. You are not too old to become stronger in the ways that matter. And you are certainly not too old to have a beautiful morning. I'll see you here at After 60 Life Wisdom. Until then, may your mornings be peaceful, your steps be steady, your mind stay curious, and your heart remain hopeful. And please, before you go, leave me one word in the comments describing how you want to feel tomorrow morning. Strong, peaceful, energetic, hopeful? I'll be reading.